Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our new knowledge session. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I'm with Virginia Community Capital, and we're one of the partners that presents this session, these programs. We have been since 2014. This is in collaboration with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abingdon. Our objective is to help our entrepreneurs, new and existing, we started out in Washington County, and it's grown to be a statewide initiative. So our goal is to help you connect with resources and programming that can help you grow as a professional. And we all, no matter what we're doing, we want to grow our skills and what we're doing and make the best of it. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules. Today's session is being recorded for education and training purposes. And we have everyone muted and off camera. But if you do have a question for our presenter, please don't hesitate to post those in the Q&A section section. And then at the end of his presentation, he will take questions. Also, we want to hear from you often, and don't want you to be this. If this is your first time, we don't want to make it your last. We want you to come back because we have programming scheduled every other Wednesday through June of next year, and we've got some great topics coming up. I'm delighted to introduce our presenter today, Chad Thomas with Visit Abingdon. He's leading our session. I've known Chad for a number of years, and his knowledge in social media and various platforms is very impressive, and he's the right person today to lead this session. So, Chad, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can share with the great things that's going on in Abingdon and how you're using social media.
Well, sounds great, Sandy. Thank you so much for the introduction and having me here today to talk about social media. So for everybody that is on the call, thank you also for joining. I think you're going to get a lot out of this today. I actually am just returning from the VA1 Governor's Tourism Summit from Norfolk, Virginia this past weekend. And I actually learned a lot myself at that summit and even added a couple of things I learned there in today's presentation. So it's going to be a real treat. One of the things that I do concentrate on at Visit Abingdon is, of course, our social media. It's a very critical stance in today's times to have that digital presence with your overall audience. And today, what we're going to be kind of focusing on is not necessarily how you create a social media, but more of what you do with it. And we're going to kind of cover things that maybe you're doing wrong, things you didn't think about, and just kind of looking at how you can leverage that to grow your brand and just get more general awareness out to your particular audience. So we'll get started on the first tab here. So let's talk about what social media is, because I think a lot of times one of the problems we have is we forget what the core fundamentals of social media is. So essentially, it's a virtual platform that allows users to connect with one another. It's a means for us to socially connect in a digital world. And it's our ability as brands or events or just individual users, influencers, whatever we are, to provide either information, education, or entertainment with our audience or our prospective audience, in most cases with the hopes of growing a following. Because, if we're a small business, one thing we want to do is grow that following so more people know about us and more people are shopping at our location. So social networking is a core fundamental element of social media, and that's the same as it is in real life. It's just the ability to connect with others, your potential clients, your customers, and your audience, to keep them informed, but most importantly, engaged in this digital space. So we're going to cover what it means to engage your audience and how you can do that, and then we're also going to cover some ways to not do those things. So on the next screen, we're going to talk about what social media is not. So a lot of times we think social media is a set it and forget it kind of thing. And in this case, it is not that. You don't want to just create a page, put out a few posts, and then never touch it again. Or if you are making posts, you don't want to not comment back to people or not reply to messages. You don't want them to be stuck in that limbo of, is this business even active? Are they paying attention to me? Do they really even care about me? So I put kind of three things over here that you should not be doing on social media. One of which is social media is not meant to be a billboard or just a wall of flyers posting about events. Social media, again, it's a social platform. So a lot of times we're forgetting that key word of social in lieu of advertising. So if you're driving down the interstate, you see a bunch of billboards, or if you're walking into a building and there's a wall of flyers around, those are examples of what you don't want your social media website to be. You want it to be more of a communication platform that is interactive and that will ultimately cause your audience to engage with you. So social media is not just a place to receive. So a lot of times we get so caught up in our draw of social media that we think people should be watching our videos, they should be liking and sharing our posts, but we have to give something back in order to receive. So it's easy to get caught up in that mindset that we just need to constantly be receiving engagement, when reality sometimes we're not. And it's also not to be inactive. So I've already kind of touched on that, but it's one of those things where I like to think of social media, and I think I have another example about this in just a moment, is think about when you're talking to somebody or somebody's talking to you on your social media platform and you never respond back to them. Okay, well, apply that concept to real life. Let's say somebody's straight in front of you, you're looking at them in the eyes, and they're talking to you, but you don't say anything back to them. You just stand there and look at them, and then you just turn and walk out. That's not going to leave a very good impression. And a lot of times on your social media platform, when you're getting comments coming in that you're not replying to, or messages on the back end that you're not replying to, that's kind of what you're doing in a nutshell. You are basically just not responding to them, and you're turning your back on your customers and clients and just walking out. So that's a really neat way to look at things. Now, if you have pages that are exploding with comments, you're getting hundreds or thousands a day. To give you a recent example, I have a personal YouTube channel that I run, and I had a video go viral. And viral for me is 50, 60,000 views. And this happened over the course of a couple of weeks. And I was getting thousands of comments. Now, it's impossible for me to go in and respond to every single comment, but I tried to keep up and respond to at least as many as I could, maybe 10 or 15 a day or so forth. So I was being engaging. So always be active with your social media and responses. So the first step to being able to leverage your social media, I've kind of mentioned this word audience. So you want to know who that audience is. Thankfully for us, social media has made it very easy to figure out who that audience is. And if you're running a particular business, maybe this is a men's or women's boutique, maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's an event, or you're a civic club, you should already have a pretty good understanding of who your audience is and should be, but social media will really dial it in for you even farther. So things you can find out about your audience are their age ranges, and we can kind of see this over here on the side. This is a direct screenshot from what Facebook audience analytics look like. You can find out the gender, their spending habits, geographical locations, their interests, and their hobbies. Now, the reason all this is important is so that way when you're creating your content, you're creating your messages, you're making advertisements or whatever you might be putting out there, you can create that content based on all this information here about your audience. So let's say, for example, you are a foot doctor. People that are following your page are probably going to be following your page because they either think you're a fantastic doctor, or they're going to want to know information that involves feet, maybe the best kind of soles to put into shoes, the best brand of shoes to buy. That is good content to put out. But if you start putting out cake baking recipes, or, maybe your favorite sports interest or something like that, your audience isn't going to engage very well because it's not what they're following for. So that kind of gives you an idea of why it's important to know who your audience is. So once you get an idea and understanding of who that audience is, then we can move on to the next section, which is figuring out what makes them engage with us. So having a following is one thing, but engagement is ultimately what we need, because if people are not interacting with our social media pages, it's not going to be pushed out to bigger audiences unless you start doing paid advertising. But right now we're talking about organic growth. How can we grow and leverage our platforms in a free way? Well, we put out content that people can relate to, things that they enjoy and want to interact with. So once we know who that audience is, and we determine what engages with them, we're going to look at a couple examples here on the side. So one way to engage with our audience is to hit them with passion or experience. So create content that your audience is passionate about. That could be something like food, entertainment, recreation, things that bring back memories to them, events that are going on that they associate with. So an example of this, I used sharing food photos versus just showing a flyer of a menu. So let's say you're a restaurant and you're not getting a lot of engagement on your post, but all you're ever really posting is maybe daily specials, they're just flyers, maybe it's just text posts. But the restaurants that are crushing it on social media and really getting that engagement, they're getting people to share their posts, they're getting people to talk about them, they'll get people to leave reviews, like things, send messages, and ultimately show up to the business. They're sharing photos of their food and their drinks, the atmosphere. If they have music going on, they'll show things like the band that's playing and all the people involved, people having a good time. Those are photos that are going to show the experience of the location, and people want to live through experiences, especially online. A lot of your younger generations especially are looking to book entire events and travels based solely around what they see online. I know my wife and I, when we're looking for new places to go and places we've never visited before, we typically will go straight to their Instagram, their Facebook, if they have videos on YouTube or TikTok. So that way we can see what that experience is going to be like and determine beforehand if it's somewhere we want to go or not. But let's say you have a different type of business model. Maybe your model is something like New Knowledge here, and it's based more on education and knowledge. Social media is a great place to educate your audience or provide them with some type of knowledge. That's one of the things I do on my personal YouTube channel is I teach things about photography, video work, things not to do in the photo side of business. I teach about social media and stuff like that. So I know that my audience is interested in education and knowledge, not so much the passion and experience. So by knowing that, I can create content that I know that they're going to come back and continue watching. And that's the same thing I'm doing for Visit Abingdon, and I've done for my previous employers as well. So one way you might can educate and give somebody knowledge is, say you're a civic organization and you want to showcase community effort. So post photos of things that you've done, not just flyers trying to get people to sign up for your next gig, but if you've planted trees in the local community, or you've donated food to other local places, or you've done some type of volunteer work, take pictures of the people that are volunteering and share that to your feed. Let people see the work that's being done. And not only are they going to appreciate this, but that might lead them to start asking questions and engage with you on how they can get involved in the future. This education and knowledge, I even do this at Visit Abingdon a lot of times. I'll share photos of things around town that maybe visitors have seen before or even locals have seen, but don't fully know the story behind it. And I'll give them the knowledge and educate them on what exactly that thing was. Maybe it's a piece of history. Maybe it's the train that sits beside the Virginia Creeper Trail Welcome Center. And when I can share those photos, they've seen it. So that's that passion and experience coming in. But then I can also provide a double whammy here with the education portion. And that gets them even more excited about it. So they want to learn more. So maybe they'll visit our website, or they'll go and actually come to town and see it for themselves. One great example here, I have Abingdon Olive Oil at the bottom. On their social media page, they do a fantastic job at educating people. So the biggest product there, of course, is olive oil and vinaigrettes and things like that. But they don't just try to sell you their olive oil and their vinaigrettes. They also teach how to make different types of recipes using these products. And when you actually get to their location, you get a whole experience of getting to taste test these products. And they really will give you that knowledge of how to utilize them in better ways. So that keeps customers coming back. So that's a few examples among many things you can be doing to engage with your audience. Put out some type of call to action and actually ask them to comment down below, to like or share and things like that. Give them some type of incentive and just show them what they want to see. Here's a fantastic example that I learned about at the Virginia Tourism Summit this weekend. Stuckey's, if everybody is maybe familiar with them, at one time, This was a road tripping empire. Stuckey's had a lot of very quirky things, and just it was kind of like a roadside attraction that a lot of people really remembered. But when the family sold this out to more of corporate conglomerates, Stuckey's really started to go downhill. And who you're seeing here is the granddaughter of the original owner of Stuckey's. And she actually presented to us of how she's been rebuilding that brand. So the first thing that she did, she road tripped across the entire United States, going to all the remaining Stuckey's locations and was taking pictures at them. In some of these locations, the paint was the wrong color. There was holes in the roofs. It just looked like a place you wouldn't want to go to. If anything, it was a wrong turn destination. But she started taking these personalized photos of herself holding the products, as you can see here. She posted some of the old vintage pieces, some of their new products, and she showcased some of these locations. Even though they didn't look the best, she found creative and unique ways to show them. And she was not only able to turn this brand back around to something relevant again, she was able to see the results of her efforts come to fruition because money started being generated again. New ideas started coming, and people started learning about Stuckey's again. And I think that's a phenomenal example. She's created a personalized experience that her audience can relate to. You know, most CEOs, you never see their face, you never know their name, and she's right here in every single picture, showcasing her products and being involved with her business. She's creating that story and sharing it with her audience, and it's being received very well. So if you want to check out their Instagram page, you can see more examples of what she's doing, how she's telling that story, to really get her audience excited about that brand and this product. So now we know who our audience is. We've learned some ways that we can engage them. So how do we fully leverage this? I've kind of talked a little bit about some of these examples, but after we figure all this out, we've got to leverage our social media. We've got to continue growing it. We've got to keep it relevant. So here's a couple engagement ideas. So like Stuckey's, share photos that showcase your amazing products, your services, or space. It's not just a little aspect, but it's really just trying to tell that whole story so people can become submerged in the brand. People want to have a feeling that they're relating to the brand and there's a connection there, not that a brand's just trying to push something off to them and put it in their face. You could share video content. Tumbling Creek Cider Company here in Abingdon did this about a week ago. I got a notification on my phone that they had went live. So I pulled up my phone and I clicked on it and I went to their page. And one of the owners of Tumbling Creek did a very short live stream for about a minute or two. And he was just showing the behind the scenes of how they're making a brand new cider. So what it did here was I got to see that, they are a small time business. They're not some big corporation. I got to relate to the video because, he's talking to me. He's looking into the camera. It's live. I feel like I'm a part of it. I'm learning something new. So he's educating me about how their business works and how the cider is actually created. And then I'm also learning that they've got a new product coming out. But nowhere in there was he saying, hey, go buy our cider, go to the tap room, go do this. He never was forcing me to do something that I maybe did or didn't want to do. But because of the way he presented that information to me, I'm like, man, I got to go try this new cider when it comes out. That's really cool. So that's a really fun way to engage with your audience. Another way is you can write blog posts or share articles on your own social media platform or website. What are neat about these is you can write these articles based on things people like. The Christmas holiday season's coming up. If you are a restaurant owner or something to that extent, write up your favorite recipe to make a cranberry cheesecake or a fruit cake or how to glaze a ham. Because if you do this, it's something that might spark interest in somebody, and they're going to go click on that article. They're going to want to learn how you create a certain thing, and it's going to drive traffic back to you, but you're also giving something in return. This is where I talked about in the beginning. Don't expect to just receive on social media. You want to give back as well. And finally, have conversations with your audience by answering comments and messages. So we kind of mentioned this as, it's kind of like turning your back on somebody and walking out the door. You want to be responsive to the people, especially with the town of Abingdon. We're running multiple events right now. We have about 4 large scale events coming up. So we're getting events coming or questions coming in on those events, like dates, times, and other relevant information. So what I try to do is when I catch those comments, and of course there's some that will be missed here and there, but I try to respond back to those as quickly as possible. The faster you can respond and give the information, the more trust you're building, the better relationships you're building with your audience and the people that are engaging with you. And the more that you engage with them, the more that they'll hopefully engage back with you. And that ultimately is what goes into building your brand at a higher level. So when you're figuring out what the content is, that might be a question some people have had is, what do I post? Maybe I've gave some great examples and some of you are going to run with that. But the best thing is to find what works and repeat. And you do this through trial and error. When I first started my YouTube channel back in 2015, I had 0 audience. So I didn't know what to post. So I just started posting random things. And I experimented for about 2 or 3 years until I found what worked. Luckily for me, when I came to visit Abingdon, they had already figured out those hard parts for me. So I kind of already knew what to post. I just have to post about our wonderful businesses, our beautiful scenery, and just different things in town. So it was kind of already created for me. But for you, it could be a fun process of trial and error. So finding out what works is also is not always the easiest thing, but in the early stages, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. You can just move on to the next thing and try again. But when you finally do find what works, that's when you really want to start replicating that process. This may be a bad example, but think about Oreo cookies. Oreo cookies are fantastic. They have never really changed the way an Oreo cookie is. They've added new flavors and new styles, but the original Oreo cookie has always been the same. And the reason is because it's good. It works. It sells. People love it. If they were to ever change the Oreo cookie recipe to have a different taste, it probably wouldn't be received very well. So it's kind of the same when you're posting content to your social media. Find what works and figure out how you can replicate that process. So if a post does well, make more of those. If it does poorly, think about why that was and how you can improve on it. Chances are a lot of times if you put out a post that does poorly, it can be things like the algorithm, the time of day, maybe that was off. But more oftentimes than not, it's not things that really resonate well with your audience. And one bit of evidence I have for that is on the Visit Abingdon page. I typically post every morning around 10 a.m. And each day of the week, I kind of have a different theme going on as far as what I post. And I noticed that it doesn't really matter what the theme is. It doesn't matter what day of the week is in that time, because I always, get the pretty good results. But if the content isn't something that really correlates or is received very well with my audience, I don't get the engagement. But if I post something that I know the audience is going to love, it always typically performs as good, if not better, than what I'm expecting of. And that's because I do that cookie cutter process over and over. Now, sometimes that can get a little bit mindless on the back end for you as the creator or the person behind the brand image. But that just gives you a chance to be a little bit more creative and challenge yourself to make things a little bit more interesting and figure out, this is working, but what about this? There was another speaker at VA1, and he was talking about how he went into all these different businesses and helped them really turn things around. And one of the best examples he gave to us was for this little donut shop. She made these like extra large donuts by mistake, just using extra dough and extra icing from the rest of her recipes. And she only would make like one of these every other week. And one customer would come in and actually buy these, and he would run around town and joke about how he has this big old donut. So the guy asked the business owner, he said, well, why don't you make these and market these? People would love this. She never really thought about it. She didn't think that anybody else would want these massive giant donuts. So after some convincing, she started to do that, and her business exploded. People were driving 200, 300, 400 miles to come and buy a giant donut from a small business in the middle of nowhere, I think in Kansas. So in reality, whatever it is that you're wanting to create, whether
recording in progress,
whether it's a physical product or if it's a digital product like we're doing here on social media, sharing that experience, sharing that story is ultimately what's going to be engaging for our audiences. So that kind of wraps up the majority of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to be sure to leave plenty of time because I'm sure we'll have some questions. I already have one question that I'm going to address at some point here in the presentation. It kind of dwells a little bit more on the back end of Facebook, some housekeeping on that. But Sandy, I guess, I don't know if you've been watching for some of the questions here.
Chad, I have some questions that somebody texted to me.
Perfect. Okay.
So when you try a platform, how long should you test drive it before you decide to add more resources or cut your losses?
Okay. So I'll give you an example of what I've done for Abingdon. So when I first came to Abingdon, we had Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, and there might have been one more out there. And I can say that Twitter, for example, for me has always been a horrible experience for my personal work, for my previous employer, and even for Abingdon. I just don't really get that interaction. So I think that this answer is essentially not a one size fits all. For me, what I would suggest is you pick the platforms that, one, you enjoy to use and are fun, because it's one of those things, if you're going to be doing this day in and day out, it gets really old. So one example of this at my previous employer was Snapchat. I was a little bit older than the curve for Snapchat, so I really didn't know enough about it to really feel safe to continue posting on it and see the results. So I concentrated on my efforts where I felt most comfortable, and that was Facebook, Instagram, and for me, YouTube. So as far as how much time I would give it, it does take time, especially if it's a brand new platform. But realistically, it all kind of depends. It depends on what it is you're trying to promote, because obviously there's going to be some sectors that maybe don't get as much love and attention from their audience as others. But that could be a recreation platform, like say Parks and Recreation. You know, there might not be as many people engaging with that content because it's not as much active content coming out. But then the flip side of that is, how do you change that? To give you an idea, on Instagram, I created a 15-second reel back in the summer when I was walking my dog in Munchkin Park, and there was a deer just walking around eating. I filmed it for 15 seconds, and that video got over 4,000 views. But then I create this beautiful post with wonderful photography and all these other things, crickets. So you really never know what's going to work. So what I would say, I would at least give something, at least 6 months to really keep pushing it. But I wouldn't give up too early. I mean, you might even want to give it a year. Give you one last example. My personal brand, my Facebook page has sit at like 400 followers for 5 years, something like that. But my YouTube is, approaching 12, 13,000 followers. So it's finding what works, where you have the most fun, and where you want to invest the most time.
So we have another question. What about paid boosting of your post on Facebook or other media? Do you think that's effective?
I do. I actually, at Abingdon, we do occasionally do some advertising and boost some posts. To give you an idea, we are doing a little bit of a boosted post on some of our Christmas events that are coming up. And I think those are great to reach new audiences and to create awareness about your brand. Because with Facebook ads, you can get so specific. I can choose, for some of these events, I don't expect people to drive 5 to 10 hours to come and shop in downtown Abingdon, but I could see people coming maybe 2 to 3 hours away. So I've created my advertisement to be in a 3-hour radius of Abingdon. It's a nice little day trip to come and take advantage of some shopping and dining. And I will narrow it down between ages, their shopping interests. So for example, I've made sure to target people that like small businesses, that like, Christmas time, holiday shopping, all those things. And you just change that list each time you do an ad. So yes, I do believe that paid advertising is very effective, and it can be very helpful in the beginning to grow that initial audience.
Okay, so I'm going to follow. This is a follow-up question. So it says to be effective, it sounds like you need a full-time position working on social media. How many hours a week would a business need to set aside to work their social media platforms?
Yeah, it does sound like that. And, larger organizations like with Abingdon, I do spend quite a bit of time on social media, but obviously that can be all my time. I have meetings and lectures, and I do graphic design and so many things. So what I do is I typically say to set aside maybe, depending on how valuable your time is, 30 minutes to an hour, maybe each day. So here's my workflow. I sit down for about an hour, one day a month, and I plan every piece of content that I'm going to put out for the next 4 weeks. And then I'll go into my social media scheduler, which for Facebook and Instagram is within Facebook, and I will schedule content for about 30 days worth of posting for that month. And that's, that includes me finding the pictures, what I want to say about it, who I want to feature, what I want to tag. Typically that revolves around a theme. So right now, of course, it's Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's all coming up. So I'm trying to theme everything based around that. And then I'll spend about maybe 10 to 15 minutes each day of the week, just checking for comments and messages that I might have missed, tweaking a couple things, and just kind of seeing what competitors are doing. So in reality, I would say if you could spend 15 minutes a day, just kind of checking into those things, that's a great start, maybe at least 3 to 5 days a week. And then maybe if you want to do what I do to save time, set aside like a whole entire hour, make a plan. I do it all in Google Sheets. I could even pull it up here in a moment and show you, but just plan it out. And that saves so much time.
So 2 more questions. Do you remember the name of your other class that showed how to advertise on Facebook? For the life of me, it's going away, but it's kind of a follow-up to Ernie's question, because he can actually review your previous class. Sandy, do you remember?
Yeah, we did it on July the 13th, and it was hands-on training and intro to Facebook ads. So you should be able to find it on our YouTube or the Virginia Highland Small Business Incubator's Facebook page in their videos. But right. It was in July.
Okay. So, and Ernie, it's also, or for the whole audience, it's also listed on our homepage of our website. And so another question was, how do you find the stats? How do you find the Facebook stats?
Okay, let me see if I can get that pulled up over here. I manage about 12 different pages, so trying to find the right ones to show is always a challenge. So with Facebook, let me see if I can get my screen share here. Are y'all able to see? Let's see here. Are y'all able to see that?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the Facebook Meta Business Suite. So you can get to this by going to business.facebook.com. And when you have your page, you should be able to log in and be able to see that. So what you can do is you can go down to Insights. And when you pull up your Insights, it's going to kind of give you a review for the past week. And this isn't a page that I very actively use, so it's not going to be as active as some of your pages might actually be. But if you have your Instagram and Facebook linked, you're going to be able to see both of those things. So it'll show you what your reach has been. And here I had posted a photo of my brother-in-law's band playing at one of the local restaurants here in Abingdon. And so it apparently did pretty well. But if you click on down in your Insights to Audience, this is going to show you everybody that's currently actively following you. So it gives you an idea of how many followers you have. It's going to talk about your age and gender. It's going to show the top cities. And if we scroll down, it'll even show countries that are interested in your page as well. But what I think's neat, what Facebook's doing right now, is they have this potential audience section. So if you click on potential audience, this shows you about how big your potential audience could be. And basically what they're wanting you to do here is start running ads to this audience that it's going to help you create based on whoever is currently following your page, so you can draw more attention to your Facebook and hopefully grow your audience, or at least get them, for example, if you have a vacation rental, maybe your goal is, and probably your goal is to get them to book your rental. So you cater that ad to an audience that's interested in travel, especially here in Abingdon. You put that ad in front of their face, they see it, they click on it, they go to your website, and then hopefully your funnel system will lead them to booking a stay with you. So, and if you scroll on down, it'll show you kind of the same thing we're already looking at. It shows you what your potential age and gender audience would be, and potentially where the majority of people would come from new cities. So we saw in my example that Abingdon, Meadowview, Bristol, that's kind of my audience. But what Facebook is telling me is that I have a good opportunity to reach people in New York and Texas and Chicago that would be interested in following the type of content that I'm putting out there. So again, yours is all going to look a little different because it's going to be specific to what you've already grown. But this is a fantastic place to start. Every social media page is going to have their own analytics. If you go into Instagram app on its own, it has an analytics section, which gets a little bit more detailed than what you see on Facebook. TikTok, YouTube has fantastic analytics reporting. I think some of the best. But honestly, the best place to find out is if you have a website and you have Google Analytics, you're going to learn more about your audience from Google Analytics than you will from anywhere else. And that will help you a ton as far as building your social media audiences.
So that brings me to the next question, which is, so if you have a website, then you just go to googleanalytics.com and it'll tell me about that. How do you find that?
Okay, let me see if I can.
And how important is if you've got a small business and you have a limited amount of resources,
mm-hmm.
and you have to choose, or, how important is it to have a website and social media platforms?
Okay, so I will address the importance of a website first. And I have a great example for this. So I think no matter how big or small your business is, everybody should definitely have a website for multiple reasons. One of which is if you have a website, you can index it on Google. And basically what that means, Google is the number one visited website in the world because of its search engine capabilities. Everybody, Google's a term in the dictionary now just because people say I would Google that. So if you're not showing up on Google, and a lot of times social media doesn't really show up, but website information will. So that's very crucial. So like with blog posts, you can write your blog post. You can share things on there and ultimately lead people to your social media and vice versa. But the Google Analytics is something that anybody can sign up for if you have a website. It's a pretty simple thing to do. I think you go to analytics.google.com and it walks you through everything to do to set it up. If you've had somebody else build you a website, usually it's pretty simple for them to put a piece of code in. If you know what you're doing, it takes about 2 minutes. But when you start seeing these Google Analytics, it's very impressive. So think about the audience section here in Facebook. We're going to learn even more things. So where in Facebook, it's telling us age, gender, and top cities. Within Google, we're going to learn even more. So we're going to learn how much money the people have. We're going to learn how they spend their money. We're going to learn more about what their interests are, what their hobbies are. We're going to learn pretty much everything but their name and address, if that makes any sense. We'll know their education level. So if you have an event that is geared towards, say, people with master's degrees, you will be able to find that information out if people have been visiting your website to see who's coming. But when you're creating an ad here in Facebook, you can target your ads towards people that have doctorate or master's degrees. Maybe you're a college and you're wanting to promote your new doctoral program. Well, obviously you want to hit people that are going to qualify for that. So to decrease your ad spend and target the correct people, you'll want to target people with masters in that field of study for the doctoral program. So that's all insights you can find. A little bit of a tangent versus the website and Google Analytics, but yes, I think everybody should have a website. This day and age, websites are easier and more affordable than they ever have been. For example, I like using the WordPress platform, but if you're not super tech savvy, it might not always be the best. but I can have a website up and running today for about $20 for the first year on WordPress. I can have photos on there. I can have a contact page, about information, link my social media, and all kinds of stuff. Now, on average, I would say if you can build a website yourself, which some of these allow you to just to point and click, you don't actually have to know code or design. You're literally just uploading pictures and changing out text. Those websites you can get as low as maybe $10 to $15 a month, which I think for what you get out of it, the return on investment is really worth it. And the example, the reason I'm saying this, if you're not familiar what's happening with Twitter right now, it was purchased by Elon Musk for, I believe, $44 billion. And he's firing staff like crazy. There are tons of people already leaving the platform because there's nobody really knows what the future of Twitter holds right now and what kind of changes are going to come about it. So the reason it's important to have a website is nobody can take that website away from you. It's kind of like my grandfather always told me when I was growing up that how important it was for me to go out and get an education, because an education is one thing nobody can ever take from me. And your website is kind of the same thing. But we're not guaranteed that tomorrow Mark Zuckerberg doesn't just say, nah, we're done with Facebook, we're closing it down. I mean, and there's examples of this happening in the past. There was people that built careers and businesses around Vine. I don't know if you might remember that platform or not, but you could record like 3 to 7 second videos. Vastly popular. People built careers around it. They would make 3 to 5 second videos about Reynolds Wrap and get paid from Reynolds Wrap to make these videos. And then out of nowhere, one day, the platform's like, all right, we're done. We're shutting it down. So now all these people that had all their eggs in the basket of Vine are gone in an instant. Same thing happened with MySpace. There might be people that use MySpace now, but back in the day, it was a huge platform. Everybody moved to Facebook, and then it's not even talked about anymore. So I think that's the important reason to have a website is you're always guaranteed. Another thing is with the censoring that's going on, you might post something that is supportive of your business, and Facebook says, that's against our terms of service. We're closing your page down. It's gone. All your followers are gone. Your posts are gone. Your ads don't matter anymore, and you're just wiped off the internet. So that's why I think everybody should invest in at least a small website.
And Chad, on the line of talking about Google Analytics, I would suggest, and something that I've used for years with Google, is Google Alerts, because I can find what people are saying online about either the organization, myself. For example, a number of years ago, I did a workshop in Clifton Forge, Virginia. Had no idea that there was somebody in the audience from the country Nepal. He went back, wrote an article about it, and it showed up in the LA Chronicles. And, that's not a newspaper that I follow, but that popped up one night that there was an article about that. And you should have your name, if you're, as the business owner, you should have your website. You could even put, your Facebook handle, but it's kind of good to follow what people are saying about you online, especially if it's a tourism business or even with Airbnb or anything like that. It's good to know what people are saying about you.
Exactly. And for anybody that doesn't know about Google Alerts, if you just type in google.com/alerts, essentially it'll come up here and you can search for anything you want. You just type it in and it will pull up pretty much every article, recent article. It's what happened. So for example, the 10 best cideries in the United States by USA Today, our Tumbling Creek Cider Company finished 9 in the top 10 throughout the entire country. So I found out about that through Google Alerts, actually. So I'm glad you brought that up. So,
and our business challenge winner.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. And you can also tell Google to send you an email once a day with the attachment so that you don't have to go, because we get busy in life. So that's what it does for me is I'll forget about it, but then I'll get a Google alert pop up on my email and say there's an article about Sandy Ratliff or Virginia Community Capital or New Knowledge or what have you.
So I pulled up Google Analytics, Chad, while you were talking, and it says that there's no data received on the tag instructions. Do you put the tags on your website or on Google Analytics?
Let me see if I can pull mine up and see. So essentially, the tag information that it's talking about is that's that little line of code that actually goes into your website so it can read that code. I'm going to see if my website, I can't even tell you the last time I logged into it, if my analytics will kind of pull up, but I can at least kind of show you what it looks like if you're unfamiliar with the analytics. So over here on the side, and this is going to change. This is the Google Analytics as it is now, but what's called GA4, so Google Analytics 4, will be coming out in July. So everybody's going to have to move over to that. That's a whole nother discussion though. But what you can see here, you can pull down your audience and you can see the list of things you can see on analytics. So you can see their demographics, so their age and their gender, of course, the geolocation. So you can see languages, what city, state they're from, their behavior. So if they're coming back more often, if they're returning visitors. You can even go down as far as seeing what kind of devices they're coming from. Is it an Apple device? Is it cell phone, tablet, computer? So that's just some really neat stuff that you can find out. But if you went into your overview, essentially what it's going to show you, which I don't think this is the right Google Analytics that I should have, but you can see this is where I found out a lot of information about visitors that are going to the Abingdon website. So I know how many people visit our site in a given month. I know where they're visiting from, so I can always tell you the top 3 cities, the top 3 countries. So it's really interesting what you can find out coming through here. But new Google Analytics, it's going to kind of make everything a little bit simpler. It's not going to be quite as complex, and it's going to be a little bit more user-friendly.
So another question that we have, Chad, is how do you format an alert for the Google alerts?
And I just responded to that. And basically all you have to do is go to Google Alerts, and you probably will be signed in. Hopefully you've got a Gmail account and you'll sign in through your Gmail account. And then I think it's under show options. There's somewhere in there where you can set it up. I think you can have up to 5 things, 5 or 6. Now it's been years since I set mine up, but it was several things that I could put in what I want it to be: the organization, my name, as I said, projects that I'm involved in, and tell it how frequent that you want it to send those to you.
Yep. So after you type in the search bar, like Sandy was saying, down below, it's going to have, create alert, but also show options. So if you click on show options, here's how you can design it. You can choose what email it goes to. I'm kind of like Sandy, and I just do mine once a day. So that way I wake up in the morning, I get to work, I can look through all my Google alerts, see if it's what I want to read, and then I get rid of them, I'm done. You can even choose sources. So if you don't want them to come from, say, blogs, you just want like news sources or web. I typically do them all just because I'd rather not chance missing something and in lieu of having a couple extra emails. So it's pretty easy to use this service.
Okay. Any more questions?
Oh, and there was one that came in over the weekend I was going to try to showcase today. So I believe, Sandy, am I correct in saying it was just trying to figure out how to get more people to be able to share a Facebook page so they can post and have permissions?
Chad, I've got to look. I've processed a lot of data since then, but hang on, I'll tell you.
I'm thinking that was...
Can you address in your social media lunch and learn how to allow other people, staff members, access to your business page that is linked to an individual's account in Instagram and in Facebook? Okay. They are hitting a roadblock with that, and I have even granted access through Facebook, but we cannot find the next step to make this happen.
Let me see if I can get back into my profile. So let's go to pages here. So there are 2 types of Facebook pages right now. So there's a couple of different ways that this is going to happen. So let me just go into the new Facebook page experience, which I personally am not a huge fan of, but you'll know if it's a new Facebook page experience because when you go to that page, it'll have you switch into it. So essentially it becomes your profile. So it looks just a little different, but it kind of works the same on both. But once you get logged in, on the main page here, you'll see an option for settings. So we're just going to click on the settings button, and this is going to get us into the back end of the page. And let's see if we can find the link here. Yeah, now if I can find it. Okay, so mine might look a little different. Oh, no, there it is. The Zoom was kind of covering it up. So what you have in the new page experience here is, people with task access, people with Facebook access, and community managers. So our page is a sub page of the Visit Abingdon brand. So that is the owner of the page. But here's where you would add these people. And these little information dots, you can click on those, and it's going to tell you what these mean. So people with Facebook access on the new Facebook pages is kind of more like your admin. So they're going to have a little bit more control over doing certain things on the page. So if these are just staff members of your business and you don't want them to have a ton of authority and control over your page, you want to give them task access. So they can't turn into the page, but they can manage certain things in the business suite. So this could be like making posts, maybe creating like an event and things like that, but they can't have admin control. So if you have the old Facebook pages, which we do have that as well, I think it's a little bit easier. They claim that the new page experience was created to make things easier for everybody, but I don't think that's the case. So if you have a classic Facebook page, you're going to scroll on down, go to your settings, and it's over here on the left-hand side, the same way it was with the other one. And if you go down, it should say page roles. Yep. So in your settings, go to page roles. And then here you can actually assign new page roles by either sending someone an email or typing in their actual name on Facebook. So if I wanted to give somebody access to the Visit Abingdon page here, I would just start typing in their name. I'm trying to think of an example of somebody. We'll see. I don't know if we have. So when you start typing in their name, it's just going to pull them up. Now, what I would recommend is before you send out this invite to somebody is you look them up on Facebook first to see exactly what their profile picture looks like, because you don't want to send this out to a random stranger and then they all of a sudden have access to your Facebook page. You can also choose in the classic version what level you want to give them. So admin, editor, moderator, advertiser, analyst, or so forth and so on. And then it's going to actually put them down here in the bottom. So you can see that this page is owned by the ACVB and that I'm just an admin that has access to get into the page.
And Chad, I just want to note that if you're giving a staff member access, if there's something happens and that staff member is terminated, that position, you need to have something in a file or something that you can terminate or take off the admin rights as soon as possible. And I know that's tough, but that's something, if you're going to give access, you better have a plan to take it away if needed.
Yep. And something like that actually happened with my previous employer because Facebook was in a transition period when I was transitioning over to my new job, is I was still attached to a page and had no idea. And we didn't find out until I was accessing the Abingdon pages. So then it was easy. They still had control, but I didn't have any posting power, but I could just see like the back end. So it was easy for me. I just immediately reached out and was like, hey, how can we get this fixed? But, not all cases are going to be like that. Not all are going to be smooth, unfortunately, transitions. So what I would recommend is you don't always have to give admin. So typically admin, I just reserve for really high level people. So in my department, obviously Tanya and I would be admins of the page. But we also, I think with us, for the town of Abingdon, the IT department is also going to be an administrator because there's always going to be somebody in that department that can help manage. So in the event, maybe I win the $1 billion lottery and decide I'm going to, move out to and buy an island. But I do it so quickly that I didn't turn the pages over. They would at least have access and could, have that. So typically you can do most everything you need to do at an editor standpoint, as far as post and commenting and running ads and things. The admin would just protect you from somebody being able to take over the page.
And Chad, I have one too that I get asked, and actually during the regional pitch contest that we're having now, it was something that was asked. Is, everybody's got a busy schedule, especially as a small business owner, and if you are dedicating time and resources, what is more important, your social platform or your website? If I can only do so much.
I think, well, here's how I kind of see it. I think if you can get what's called evergreen content on your website, that is stuff that never really has to be updated, or hopefully not updated very often. That will regularly keep people coming back and provide them with information. Then you can focus the majority of your time on social media, because I feel like the majority of people are going to go to social media just because they either have it, it's an app, they don't have to go to a website, and they can find that information quickly. And it's also going to get out to people a lot faster. There's not really notifications that people sign up for most websites that will lead them to find out you have a new blog post. So I would say social media first, website second, because websites really require very low maintenance. Some examples I would think of that you would maybe need to change things on your site or update it was if you're a business and you change your hours, maybe like an address change if you were to move to a new location or something like that. But yeah, just put you some evergreen content on there, have your contact information, and I think you're pretty good. Oh, I think you're muted. Sorry.
All right, I did that rookie mistake again. Folks, we're getting to the end, and if you've got a question for Chad, but I've got one last one. When you're posting, Chad, I guess depending on the social platform will dictate how often that you post. For example, for me, I would post a lot more to Facebook than I would, for example, LinkedIn. And it's not necessarily the same exact message on both. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so, because each platform, because the audiences are a little different. One thing that can help a lot of people out if you are managing multiple platforms is you can post the same content on every single platform, just change it up slightly. So for example, when I make a short video, I post it, typically I'll put it on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, but I change each one just slightly. So that way it doesn't take too much of my time, but it molds for different audiences. TikTok's going to be usually your Gen Z and millennials. Instagram's going to be probably your millennials and generation above that. And then LinkedIn is going to be more of your professionals. So I just kind of slightly change it. Like say it's a photo, you're posting a photo, I might just change the caption on each platform of how I might say something. Like Facebook, I might make it a more like a family kind of thing. LinkedIn, it's going to be a more professional wording. And then say Instagram's maybe a little bit more fun. And you asked about how many days or how many times or frequency, I believe too. I think as long as you're posting at least a minimum of 2 to 3 days a week on most platforms, that's going to keep you relevant and show people you're active. If you get in a routine where you schedule more posts, especially if it's simple posts, I think 3 to 5 days a week's really good. You certainly don't have to post 7 days a week like some people claim. So just whatever works best for you.
Great. Well, I don't see that we have any other questions. First of all, I want to thank you, Chad, for your time and sharing your expertise. I know that it takes time to put these presentations and build the content, and I appreciate your support with this and sharing your knowledge with the other folks. If you want a copy of Chad's content or anything, let me know and we'll be happy to send that to you. I do want to do a plug for our next New Knowledge session. That will be on December the 7th. And it's going to be focused on sustainability, what that means for your business. And Carl Knoblich, who is the District Director of Virginia for the Small Business Administration, will be leading that. And that's something that I think we've all, especially during the pandemic, that businesses have struggled with is sustainability, because when the pandemic hit, some businesses were not prepared to what happens and going forward with their business. So I encourage you to do that. Just a reminder that today's session is being recorded and will be up on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page, but it will also be on the our New Knowledge channel on YouTube that you can go to. And yes, I see where someone wants a copy of your slides.
Okay.
And but I thank everybody for joining us today. We do it for you all, and I hope that you got a lot out of it. I know that I did. I always learn something from Chad. So wish everyone a good Thanksgiving and hope that you can join us again in December for our next session. And we've got a whole list of them all the way through June of 2023. So come back often and join us. Thank you, and wish everybody a good day.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks. You're welcome. Y'all have a great day.